Chosen ones. Fate has a wicked sense of humor, doesn't it? One moment, they dismiss you. The next, they can't take their eyes off you. You were overlooked, underestimated, maybe even laughed at. Yet here you are, standing where they never expected you to be. The best kind of revenge isn't anger. It's success. It's proving them wrong without saying a word, letting your presence be the only statement necessary. Studies even show that people spend more time stalking those they envy than supporting their own friends. Funny, right? The same ones who doubted you are now your biggest spectators. Let them watch. Let them wonder how the mistake they made turned into your greatest advantage. Keep building, keep winning, because the greatest irony of all, the ones who once rejected you are now your biggest, most silent fans. Stay chosen, stay undeniable. They anticipated, possibly even cheered for, your collapse. Rather, they have been met with a narrative twist they did not expect, your ascent. They're sitting behind their computers now, scrolling through your victories as if it were the season finale of their favorite program, while you're prospering. People often have a hidden hope that life will prove them correct when they reject you. In order to justify their choice to ignore or move away from you, they anticipate that you will falter, fall, and eventually become irrelevant. Your failure, in their opinion, validates their decision, preserving their ego and supporting the story they made up when they abandoned you. However, it interferes with their sense of confidence when you flourish instead of crumbling under the weight of rejection. It gets unnerving how resilient you are. No matter how hard they try, they can't ignore it. Curiosity takes over. They begin to go over your updates, check in on you, and listen for hints about your development. They first want to know that you had difficulties. Perhaps they seek proof that closing the door on you was the proper thing to do. However, people see your victories piling up rather than your demise. Despite your best efforts, every accomplishment seems like a subtle jab. They would never acknowledge it, but they are now involved. It resembles a perverted kind of reality TV in which you are the star and their success is the unexpected story point. They continue to follow you in the hopes that something would go wrong, but you just keep going. Living on your own terms and refusing to let rejection define you is more important than being petty or spiteful, and it is the main source of their annoyance. Nothing, not your suffering and certainly not your failure, is owed to them. They fail to realize that rejection was never the end of your journey. Something better was kindled by the spark. Their cozy assumptions are upset by your survival and development. As they see you succeed, they are forced to consider the possibility that their decision was incorrect. The irony of it all? They become your most devoted audience as they attempt to see you fail. People make up a tale about what will happen when they reject you. You are meant to fade into obscurity in that tale, demonstrating that they made the proper choice. Perhaps they see you battling to become better, rushing to get approval, or just remaining in the background while others pursue more and better endeavors. It's an orderly story that gives them authority. However, everything becomes unbalanced when your success upsets that narrative. All of a sudden, you are the unexpected narrative twist, rather than the forgotten character in their screenplay. They believed that rejection was the end of your narrative, but you have since added unexpected chapters. The problem is that people don't respond well to shocks that contradict how they see themselves. It might be difficult to accept that your success makes them reevaluate their decisions. They're now watching, sometimes compulsively, as they attempt to figure out why you didn't live up to their expectations. They calmly monitor your progress, examine your movements, and flick over your victories. They fail to see that their interest is about more than simply you. It's about attempting to figure out how they went so wrong. They are anxious to retake control by monitoring your life since their once strong story is coming apart. It's about insecurity more than jealousy alone. Your achievement disproves their notion that they were able to determine your value. They stalk in silence in an attempt to regain their feeling of dominance by seeing a lapse in your progress. However, the more you succeed, the more that narrative eludes them. The splendor of it all, you don't exist for their approval or affirmation. You're living for yourself, creating an unpredictably unique and uncompromising narrative. They are now confined to the role of spectators, seeing a storyline that they did not anticipate. and over which they have no influence. People who reject you often do so with assurance. They believe they made the correct decision, that you lacked the necessary skills or were not deserving of their time, interest, or money. But as you recover and begin to thrive, it changes how others see you. You are the one who disproved them, not the guy they fired, all of a sudden. And that interferes with their judgment. The stalking starts at that point. Seeking to understand how someone made a mistake is more important than only being curious. They become into detectives, analyzing every action you do to see where they went wrong. Perhaps they misjudged you based on a single instance rather than your potential, undervalued your willpower, or failed to recognize your brilliance. In any event, your success becomes an inexplicable conundrum to them. In an attempt to piece together the tale they missed, they will surreptitiously linger in the background, check your social media, and inquire about you from common acquaintances. They must comprehend how the individual they rejected is currently prospering without their consent or participation. They seem to be looking for an excuse that would absolve them of responsibility and restore their sense of satisfaction with their initial choice. In actuality, however, their error was caused by their narrow viewpoint rather than you, and they continue to stalk because of it. They know deep inside that they made a mistake, and seeing you flourish serves as a continual reminder of that. They're not just attempting to comprehend your path. They're also attempting to reconcile with their own inability to see your worth. The irony? You're too preoccupied with going about your life to notice them while they're busy evaluating your accomplishment. You're not looking for their approval or trying to get their affirmation. While they're caught in a rut trying to figure out what they missed, you've moved on. As a result, they are now the ones who are unable to let go. People who reject you often construct a mental fortress in which they believe their choice was correct, and you are neatly categorized as unimportant. They feel safe, comfortable, and justified in their decision to ignore or walk away from you because of that fortress. The intriguing part, however, is that your development is like a wrecking ball to their comfort zone. Their tranquility is disturbed by the precise fact that you're prospering. You serve as a constant reminder that their wager was incorrect. It shakes their confident story every time they hear your name or see your achievements. They follow you not just out of interest, but also because they can no longer ignore your presence. Their ego is gnawed at by every post, remark, and rumor of your achievement. You're just achieving and surviving on your terms. You're not attempting to haunt them. However, the rejection they attempted to force upon you is overshadowed by that life. They believed that the narrative would finish when they closed the door, but your presence keeps it open. The twist is that they are unable to avoid you. Perhaps you're succeeding in the field they assumed they would dominate, or they hear your name in discussions they never dreamed you would be a part of. You stand for a reality they never considered. The individual they failed to consider is now unavoidable. Without you having to do anything, it's poetic justice. Ironically, they are now imprisoned in the same comfort zone they created to defend themselves. They can't get away from the fact that they gambled against the wrong person, so they're forced to watch from the sidelines. What about that residual presence? It's the lovely sound of you going about your life, carefree and unquestionably successful. When someone rejects you, they want you to either fade into the background or struggle for their acceptance. They don't expect you to silently rise above it without a word of resentment or a shred of self-validation. Success is the most poetic kind of retaliation because of this. It speaks for itself. No notification is necessary. Your accomplishments turn into a statement that is louder than any argument could ever be. Before, people may not have been interested in hearing your side of the story, but now they can't stop listening to the sound of your victories reverberating around the world. Achievement pushes itself into discussions, ensuring that your name is brought up in settings they previously believed you would never visit. The best part is that you never have to speak. Your accomplishments, development, and advancement speak for themselves. They return because of this. The story they attempted to shut has captured their attention. It's as if they're reading chapters of a book they said wasn't worth reading and then discover it's a bestseller. They must see the conclusion. or at least the way you are ensuring it never happens. The fact that you're not doing it for them is the most fulfilling aspect. Despite their disapproval, you're doing it for yourself, for the life you've always dreamed of. However, what's the irony? They care more about your path today than they did when you were trying to get their favor, succeeding without requiring approval while they are unable to stop observing from the shadows is the ultimate power maneuver. Instead of shouting, success persistently whispers. They are unable to shake the voice from their minds. Whether it's an underdog succeeding or a train accident, people like a good show. They wagered on the former with regard to you, but you ended up being the latter. They are unable to turn away now. Not only is your achievement surprising, but it also goes against the story they wrote when they rejected you, which makes it irresistible. They may have first spoken with a common acquaintance or glanced through your social media accounts in an attempt to learn if you were having difficulties. Then, however, an odd event occurred. You began to thrive rather than just endure. Gains accumulated, your self-assurance increased, and it was hard to ignore you. They were immediately captivated. Right now, their curiosity has to be satiated, not their desire to support you. They need to see how far you'll go, what you'll do next, and if you'll make a mistake. It's similar to a show they never intended to binge watch, but are now addicted to streaming. The worst part is that you are completely unaware that they are observing. You're too preoccupied with living your life, accumulating victories, and maintaining your focus on your objectives. They are obsessed with what you stand for, not just with you. You became a live example of how rejection isn't the end and how it unnerves them. However, they return because they want to see whether you will finally prove them correct. Notice the spoiler. You won't. The funniest part? Your strength is shown by their mute audience. Without even trying, you've transformed their rejection into an obsession they never agreed to, making you an unavoidable sight. To be honest, it is their issue, not yours. Individuals who reject you often believe they have the best solution. They have their own definition of success, and you are rejected if you don't match it. The catch is that they recognize their plan was wrong when you succeed on your own terms. Then all of a sudden, they are analyzing your movements as if they were a master lesson in winning. They first refuse to acknowledge it. They will dismiss your triumph as a coincidence or a stroke of luck. However, it becomes evident that you are not just succeeding, but also inventing as your victories continue to mount. You're acting in a new way and defying the norms they believe to be unchangeable. They're taking notes now. They may even begin to mimic you, seeking to fit in with your methods or replicating your tactics. Ironically, they used to believe you were unimportant. Now, however, you are the unexpected blueprint. The fact that you are not attempting to establish trends or be a leader is what makes this so fulfilling. You're just living your life as it is, on your own terms, and for that reason alone, you are worth studying. Originality attracts people, and your accomplishment is evidence that there are other paths to success. Their renewed interest is evidence of your influence. You become the person people silently learn from after being ignored. And because you dared to achieve on your own terms, you've turned into a force they can't ignore, whether they realize it or not. They believed they were closing a chapter and moving on when they rejected you. The irony is that they are the ones who were stranded. They continue to follow you about in the hopes of discovering proof of your failure while you're occupied with living your life, developing, and achieving. But rather of finding closure, they've locked themselves in a never-ending cycle of seeing your victories. The punishment is self-inflicted. The more people follow you, the more they realize how foolish it was to underestimate you. Every accomplishment you make seems like a lost chance to them. Thus, they are unable to turn away. As if they're trying to find a way out, they become captives of your timeline and browse through your updates. The amusing aspect? You have no idea how obsessed they are. Without giving their rejection a second thought, you're concentrating on your objectives, enjoying your victories, and moving on. They're mired in the past, reliving their choice and attempting to comprehend how you disproved it. Their devotion goes beyond simple curiosity. It's an attempt to reclaim a narrative that they lost the moment you made the decision to succeed. The problem is that you've gone beyond their rejection, so they'll never get the closure they need. Seeing you lead a life over which they have no control is their punishment. What's the greatest part? You're too focused on winning to give a damn. Stalking after rejection is often motivated by self-reflection rather than just curiosity or envy. They are forced to face what they lack or are unable to do when they see your accomplishment. Even when what they see disturbs them, you turn into a mirror they can't take their eyes off of. Their own stagnation, lost chances, or unrealized potential are brought to light each time they read through your victories or hear about your advancements. Even while their rejection may have been motivated by a sense of superiority, they now wonder whether that assurance was misguided. What does it say about their own journey if you, the one they previously disregarded, can climb with such assurance? That may be a disturbing concept, and rather of facing it directly, they obsess over you in an attempt to identify faults that would help them feel better about their own deficiencies. The irony is that they have never been the focus of your achievement. You're simply going about your life, concentrating on your development and objectives. However, to them, you now represent everything they are afraid of: success in spite of rejection, development without their consent, and fortitude in the face of uncertainty. Their fears create a poisonous cycle in which they continue to observe you in the hopes of seeing a flaw in your radiance. However, the more you succeed, the more difficult it is for others to overlook their own shortcomings. They are caught comparing themselves to someone they previously disregarded rather than live their own tale. And there is where they will be punished. They stay stuck, compulsively comparing their value to your advancements while you advance, becoming stronger and wiser. They don't understand that concentrating on their own development, not yours, is the only way to break free from that loop. But in the meanwhile, they will continue to observe, troubled by the unintentional reflection you give them. They probably had a limited or antiquated idea of who you were when they rejected you. Perhaps they believed you were not worth banking on, had little promise, or didn't belong in their world. But they made a mistake since people change throughout time. You developed, gained knowledge, and changed. You didn't remain in the version they rejected. They can't fully understand how you sparkle today. Your glow is about perseverance, confidence, and the calm that comes from understanding your value without need their approval. It's not only about achievement on the outside. The individuals who formerly dismissed you are confused by that magnetic energy. They are unable to reconcile their previous perception of you with the successful, self-assured person you have evolved into. It screws with their skulls, to be honest. They stalk in an attempt to find an explanation. They want to hear how you overcome their rejection and go on to excel, shine, and ascend. They examine your movements, go over your accomplishments, and sometimes even attempt to follow your route exactly. They don't realize, however, that your inner light is what gives you your shine. It is the outcome of introspection, tenacity, and a refusal to let their opinions define you. The fact is that they are unable to recreate your light, hence they are unable to comprehend it. It's about the unwavering confidence that comes from knowing that you achieved your goals on your own terms, not only about achievements or approval from others. And as long as people are stuck looking at you through the prism of who you were before, they will never be able to really understand that. The finest aspect? You're not shining to convince them of anything. The reason you shine so effortlessly and so hard for anyone to ignore is because you're just being your true self. They disapproved of you because they thought you would only ever be that version of yourself. However, people change, and your development has become something they didn't anticipate. Someone stronger, smarter, and more self-assured, someone they never thought you'd become, has replaced the person they rejected. They are now fascinated by your metamorphosis. They could have first attempted to disregard it. Even when facts contradicts their original judgments, people want to cling to them. However, your development was too strong to ignore. Every stride you made further eroded their opinion of you. And now they're watching. Not because they agree with it, but just because they find it fascinating. It's similar to seeing an unexpected turn in a narrative they believe to be predictable. They are compelled to wonder what will happen next. Not only is your accomplishment remarkable, but it is also disruptive. It makes them face the reality that they totally miscalculated you and challenge their own presumptions. The fact that you're not acting for their gain just adds to the satisfaction. Your development is a normal part of your trip. It's not a spectacle. However, they find it to be an unstoppable spectacle. They turned you down because they believed they understood your narrative, but you showed them they were only reading the prologue. Their interest in you is evidence of your change. They used to ignore you, but now they can't ignore the force you have become. What's the greatest part? While they are trapped attempting to catch up to a non-existent version of themselves, you are still changing and creating new chapters. An implicit attitude of superiority is often present when someone is rejected. When someone rejects you, it's because they think they're doing things better or are making better decisions. However, life has a humorous way of changing the course of events. Now, the person they rejected serves as the standard by which they evaluate themselves. They most likely first attempted to downplay your accomplishment. People dislike owning up to their mistakes. However, as your victories continued to mount, they were unable to ignore you. They began to pay attention because they needed to evaluate how they compared to you, not because they wanted to celebrate your accomplishments. You are now the norm, whether they acknowledge it or not. They silently follow your growth, observe your movements, and contrast your accomplishments with their own. Ironically, they used to think you were unimportant. However, they are now measuring your achievement against their own. You're not in competition with them, which is what makes this so poetic. You're just going about your life. Your attention is on your personal development, not on what other people think. However, they have transformed it into a silent contest in which they are always comparing themselves to someone they previously disregarded. In actuality, you didn't become their standard by vying for their acceptance. You succeeded by being loyal to yourself and tenaciously pursuing your objectives. And that's why it's so strong. You pushed your way into that position by exceeding their expectations. They didn't choose you as a standard. Their fixation serves as a warning that success reclaims the narrative that rejection defines you. They are now forced to play catch-up and evaluate themselves against the unexpected individual. Your ascent symbolizes the error of the individuals who rejected you, which unnerves them. Your accomplishment demonstrates that they were mistaken in their belief that they could determine your value. And that's a scary realization. Those that reject you often do so because they believe they have a certain definition of success and that you don't suit it. However, it makes people doubt their own abilities when you go against their expectations and prosper on your own terms. What else have they miscalculated if they were incorrect about you? That is the point at which dread arises. You stand for the potential that their judgment isn't as perfect as they first thought. And it is unnerving to have that type of skepticism. It undermines their self-esteem and compels them to reconsider their own decisions and viewpoints. They follow you because they want to know how you disprove their claims, not simply because they're curious. They're looking for a weakness in your achievements, anything that will allow them to stick to their original story. However, the more you succeed, the more difficult it is for them to defend their rejection. Ironically, their dread is unrelated to you personally. It has to do with what you represent, the breakdown of their delusion of certainty. And you're out here enjoying your life, unapologetically winning and unafraid, while they're busy struggling with that fear. Their fear is a reflection of their own limits and fears, not something you have to bear. And that dread will come back to haunt them more the higher you climb. People often reject you because they think you don't meet their definition of success. They have strict rules about what it takes to win, and they write you off if you don't follow them.